What's going on, everybody? 7mileradio.com. We are live on the air right now. A couple of minutes early, but it's all right because we have a worthy cause to talk about today. You know what I'm saying? Everybody knows about what's going on in Flint, Michigan right now. And if you don't know, you probably rode here with Stacey Dash. But I have some gentlemen here with me that are very knowledgeable about what's going on in the city of Detroit. Not only the city of Detroit, but the city of Flint in regards to the water crisis and the water situation as a whole. A friend that you all are very familiar with at this point in time, my friend Charles Bell, who's instrumental in a lot of things going on here at 7 Mile Radio, is here with the Detroit Water Brigade, which he is also a part of. And we have Meko and Kevin, who are members of the Detroit Water Brigade, here with him as well. How you doing, Charles Bell?
Flint Water scandal. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Flint Water scandal. Let me get it right.
Yep. It's not a crisis. It's a scandal.
It's a scandal. So we have a lot of information that is, I guess, soon to come out, supposedly about the water scandal with these whole, the emails that's being released with Snyder. But the first couple of pages of that is like blacked out or something. Am I correct?
Redacted email.
And he's missing some documents.
Wow. But before we get off into that, how did this start? Because from what I understand, you all just told me that Kevin was very instrumental in breaking this whole news story and getting the information out there initially to the major media outlets. So, Kevin, what is your position on everything that's going on right now?
Well, I moved to Flint about 8 years ago, and ever since then, I fell in love with the place. And now that I moved away, I've been listening to these stories about what's going on there. So we decided to put together a website, Flint Water Scandal, because what we saw, when I moved away, the emergency manager was coming in, and I just totally did not like that whole law, the way it went through, what it stands for and what it means. The emergency manager law basically strips people's rights to vote for how their tax dollars are going to be handled in that jurisdiction. So it's a taxation without representation scheme. And we see the results of that. We see the results of that now with kids with lead in their body. And when I think about it, I want to cry. So we put together this website to pop this story national because I didn't see it gaining any traction. And now that it has traction, we have to flip the website to do a different thing, to provide services for the people, but also to make sure that the people that caused this are held accountable. We do not want to lose sight of the fact that the crime occurred here.
Right.
I agree.
It's a lot of people I'm hearing that pretty much, I don't even want to play devil's advocate on this situation, but are downplaying, I'll say it like this, the fact that it was a crime committed. Can you elaborate on exactly what was criminal about the situation?
Well, see, when the emergency manager first came on the scene, the city had to develop a board to communicate with this manager. So they developed what they called a Receivership Transition Authority Board. And they created that board and filed it with the Treasury. And as part of those documents, so it's kind of like a contract between how them and the emergency manager for how they're going to communicate.
Right. And
so they lay out their ethics in there and how they're going to deal with each other. And in there they have ethical policy, and there's a section for fair dealing. And in that fair dealing clause, it says no board member shall misrepresent factual information or conceal information for advantage. And we know factual information was misrepresented. We know they concealed information for advantage. And, I assert that contract not only applies to the board, but applies to every member for that contract, which would include the emergency manager. So, in December, we wanted to bring this before the Michigan Board of Ethics, who is riddled with Snyder appointees. And but they had canceled their meeting. They meet 4 times a year, so they canceled that meeting in December. So the next meeting is March 3rd. So we're telling everyone to go to our site and find the page for Michigan violated their ethics rules in the Flint Water scandal, and find that page, and you'll see how to find the complaint form for the Michigan Board of Ethics. We want everyone to be there in the Capitol March 3rd to fill that room and make the Board of Ethics do what their job is, and that's to investigate the ethical violations that were committed during this crime.
Now, even with all that you said, even doesn't it boil down to just being as simple as, hey, you cut the water supply off for the sake of saving money, and you knew that this was contaminated water. Now, was there or was there not a situation where there were supposed to have been chemicals that was placed in the water to help clean it or whatever that was? They denied it.
They were supposed to add an agent to the water to help coat the pipes so they would not break down and it would not allow bacteria to grow. They elected not to do that to save money. It would cost them a total of $10,000, $100 a day for about 3 months. And they didn't do that, and now they have to replace all the pipes, and people are getting sick over this. And so it all goes back to the philosophy of why they implemented this emergency manager law.
Right.
This emergency manager law is all about putting profits over people.
Exactly.
And at the abridgment of civil rights, of the founding principles of our documents. We have a in our Constitution we talk about the separation of powers, and it's not just about the 3 branches of governments. It's about the 3 levels of governments. And what we have here is an abomination of that process of allowing the local government to administer their jurisdictional duties for the tax dollars, and the state coming in and taking over those duties so the people have no voice on how their tax dollars are being spent that are collected within that jurisdiction. That is totally contrary to what this country stands for, and Snyder needs to go to jail for that.
And you said you lived in Flint off and on for how long?
So I moved there in 2006, and then I moved back to Chicago, where I'm originally from. I grew up on the north side, but I lived on the west side, south side of Chicago.
And this actually took place. When did this change? Because this
in
happened
2011 is when
exactly.
the emergency manager took over for Flint, and they made the switch. The decisions for the switch started coming in 2013 when they elected to get off of they're deciding whether to stay on the Detroit system and go to this new pipeline from the Huron that they're going to build to Lake Huron. And at that time they're going through some emergency manager changes, so some new guys came on. Darnell Early ended up there, and he decided to rush the scene, and before the pipe was finished he said, no, I want to leave Detroit Water now. And that was basically, some people say that was a design to withhold a revenue source to Detroit to make them look worse on the books, to drive them further into bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Based on what I've seen Snyder do, I know how to do math too, so that makes sense,
So Meko, what are you've been a little silent right now. I know you to be a very vocal person, man. What are your views on everything that's going on right now in Flint and as it's connected to Detroit and the rest of the United States? How do you feel about it?
Everything is connected. It's connected internationally. We came back from Ireland a year ago when they were fighting their water charge protest, where they shouldn't pay their bills because they were being taxed unfairly and they wanted to make it a tax. That's what we're going through in Detroit. I've been down in Detroit right now, trying to push for water amnesty, and that's coming through in the next couple of weeks. You've seen 5,000 people come through for a parking ticket amnesty over the holidays. So don't tell me Detroit can't handle that business. You know what I'm saying? It's never was about the bills. This is about privatization, control, the worst of regionalization, the state that we live in, where politics of segregation and total misuse of corruption and mishandling of our water system. This is the one resource that we all share. So, it's bigger than just, the bills and all the things that happen. This is a crisis now that needs to be fixed, and we're, delivering water. That's what we used to do for Detroit when Detroit was being shut off, and the same people came here from Netroots Nation to protest and to represent, but what is the local community and the residents doing? Because there's some people that's still out there that's kind of like, they're not downplaying it, but they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do, so we got to show them what to do.
And I wanted to interject there for a second, because me and Meko were talking earlier, and what we've done is we set up a text messaging system, so because not everyone can get online, everybody has Facebook. Some people only have Obama phones, all they can do is text message.
Exactly.
So we set up a text messaging service. If you text at Flint Water Scandal to 23559, you can join for getting the alerts from us. We'll tell you where water drop-offs are, where to get the test kits. As we
Say that
find
one
out.
more time.
So that's you text at Flint Water Scandal to the numbers 23559. Also, we have a group discussion where you can text into the group. So, like if you're from out of town, you can text to this address, and then everyone can hear you. So one's for broadcast that we control, the other one's a group discussion everyone can kick in. And that one is you text at FWS 810485. And you can think of that as 810 is the area code, 485 is part of the zip code. So it's FWS 810485, and you text that to the same number, 23559.
Yeah, and we got a Share Water campaign that is getting ready to pop off as the same we've been doing in Detroit. We're trying to expand that with Flint, but we're hooking up with a few groups out in Flint, so we've been negotiating for right now, on a better strategy.
Great.
Also, I want to try to bring in a friend of mine that I met at the Water Rights Rally in California last year to bring medical attention. Right now, he's in Nepal doing, I think, the earthquake that happened over there. We were talking about this earlier, and provide the people of Flint and also Detroit a better voice and a power of resistance, striking back against the machine that has totally put them in a situation that is downright devastating, from people getting shut off to Detroit, to people owing money, to people that now is suffering with lifelong disaster. It's really crazy. When you think about it, it kind of makes you cry and get emotional to get upset, because now the people will have forever developments.
It don't make me cry, it make me mad as hell, because I feel like we're at war with our government. Our government has waged war on us and policy.
I'm glad you hit that nail, because it's like, I wonder if I was the only one who was feeling Civil War-ish about this whole thing.
Yeah, this is
it seems
war.
like it's a battle we fighting against who? Our own government.
Our own government. I feel like if this was happening anywhere else, this would be, all over the news. This would be considered terrorism, and we would be talking about invading this country and blowing stuff up. Yeah. But since it's our government, it's a quiet, issue. It's redacted emails. It's very offensive. It pisses me off. And I feel like these officials that create these social problems, they need to be dealt with properly. Snyder needs to be in prison right now.
Exactly.
How?
Just today, it was announced an EPA official had resigned. And that's where we're seeing all these people walking out the door resigning with nobody being held to account.
Exactly. You shouldn't be allowed to resign. Resign, that's weak.
And Snyder going to a Congress testimony to testify about the Flint situation. It was like crazy, because to go to a do-nothing Congress that has not moved on any laws for the past 4 to 7 years, really? I wouldn't even,
Snyder was on TV with Charlie LaDuff last night, and he said that he would bathe his grandkids in that water.
Unbelievable!
I was in Flint on Monday.
Yeah.
I was in Flint on Monday, and my friend's teeth are falling out. My other friend had to get a biopsy on his skin lesions. So,
it's offensive.
It's an insult.
That's disrespectful, yo. Yeah.
But I don't expect anything less from a governor who has never respected Michiganders, never voted for, or never stood with us. Everything we stood for, he's always been against. So I think this speaks volumes about us as a people, because we know what Governor Snyder stood for, and he's still in office. Why can't we come together to get this guy out of office? Why can't we collect those signatures to get a recall petition executed successfully? This guy, he's done more harm to this state than any governor I can think about in the last, in my lifetime.
That's right. And I like that what you said about petitions. We have another one to remove his exemptions from FOIA requests.
Exactly.
We need some sunshine on this situation. That's the best disinfectant. We got a lot of disease going on.
And to link this to other, communities that are possibly, going through the same struggles of water as a right in the United States of America. I really think that, we have to bridge this link together to where all communities are affected, and we're all going to stand up and fight together against what our government is doing.
Exactly.
It's all related.
We have to fight back. The time is now. We are under attack. Detroit owns 1/5 of the world's fresh water, and this is what they came for. This is why this regional authority was set up, to attack Detroit's water. because water is one of the most abundant resources that we have.
It is life.
It is life.
And we have the cleanest source of that on this side of the planet.
The precious
Exactly.
resource.
Well, in some areas, not in Flint.
Oh no, well, yeah, I'm talking about the Great
Right.
Lakes.
The Great Lakes is already
and
at,
Nestle, they put up a plant up by Traverse City, and they've been pumping water every day, sending it down to Flint and Detroit, and already the water tables in that area are down 4 feet.
and they
So,
say water not a right. The CEO of Nestle said water is not a human right.
we came up with a list of demands of things we want from Snyder, the ACLU, the Flint Water Study Org, and Melissa's Water Brigade. Water Refighting For organization. They all came together and put forth these demands, and I wanted to tack one more onto that, and that is to clean up that river, because we think about the children, but you got to also think about the grass that was watered with that, the fish tanks, the dogs that had to lap that water out their bowl, and this is going to devastate that whole area. That water's all over the place now. I mean,
like
all
I
that
said,
lead
we
is
have
all
to-
over the place right now.
We gotta treat this like a no different than like a disaster zone, like an earthquake or a tornado went through there. I was just talking to one of my Facebook friends, and we were speaking on other things that people would need down there as an effect of not having clean water, such as being able to cook, wash clothes, bathe.
Oh,
you know what I mean? So they need other resources.
And
besides
the
just
economy
water.
is now collapsed. When I went there on Monday, all the restaurants or parking lots were empty. Nobody's eating there because it affects more than just the residents.
Exactly.
Everyone that works there, everyone passing through wanting to stop off and eat something. They got meat packers there. They had breweries there. Who's going to drink that beer now?
Exactly. I was just actually talking to my sister on the way here, and we were just talking about the fallout of this Flint water scandal, and we already lead the nation in population exodus. So when we think about Flint, who's going to want to live there after this? Who's going to really move to Flint?
Flint had 70,000 people working in the GM, and that was in their heyday. When I moved there in 2006, they had 17,000, and it went down from there. So it was already pretty much done. Snyder came in and stuck a fork in it.
Exactly.
The devil he is.
And think about Detroit, most definitely, like where we have 200,000 people still at risk of being shut off of water. And that now complicated, the negotiations that we had with the city of Detroit, because of, the ongoing situation. Snyder is the elephant in the room.
Right.
And Mayor,
getting back to what Charles was saying about these geopolitical forces, it's bigger than Snyder. Like I was just saying about Flint's economic depravity over the last 20 years, from the GM closing their Chevy in the hole and their North Branch factory, moving that to Mexico. That all came from another place than just Snyder. That came from these geopolitical globalization forces that moved all of our jobs overseas that Charles was alluding to.
Yeah.
So this installation of the emergency manager law is just a manifestation of that whole mindset.
I agree.
And to be still as hell about the bankruptcy and how that was being traded through the water bonds and all assets. Emergency managers is nothing but pillagers in your own communities.
Yep.
Nothing more than dictators.
Dictators that we never asked for, never needed. We wish you would leave immediately. You're not welcome.
These emergency managers, what I was telling Charles online was that they're like carpetbaggers. Because
Exactly.
he
Like
moves them around.
Bingos.
Darnell Early was in Saginaw. Then he moved him to Flint, messed up their water. Now where is he? He's still collecting a paycheck, a bigger
Detroit.
paycheck in Detroit.
Yep.
So he got rewarded. And he's still collecting off of our dime while these kids are sick and dying.
Yeah, what I really want people to do is I want people to sit back and think about this. You have a situation in Flint. Why Flint? Why Detroit public schools? Why are all these issues connected? Why are these two cities being isolated and attacked? And I feel like when we sit down and we think about this, I feel like the governor felt Flint was so disconnected from the nation. Because when you think about Flint, if you don't live in Michigan, the only thing you know about Flint is that it's urban, it's synonymous with destruction, there's nobody there, it's vacant. I bet you he felt like no one would care. And then he's operating with impunity because he feels like, well, I'm hiding behind this exemption from the Freedom of Information Act, which should never have happened. Michigan is one of the only, there's two states that have an exemption for lawmakers. Michigan, and Massachusetts. Why does the governor of all people need an exemption from the Freedom of Information Act when the act was designed to provide transparency for elected officials? We need to know what our elected officials are doing at all times.
Exactly.
And then when you tell us that you're going to release the emails, at first he said, I'm going to release some of them. We need to see all of them. Then when he released them, they're redacted. That's disrespectful. It's offensive. I'm sick of this guy. He needs to be gone immediately.
Man, Governor Snyder. And what we got? 3 more years of this dude? Supposedly.
Governor Snyder is right now
he should be out right
on.
now.
Oh yeah, we all know
Like the recall petition.
I will
right
launch
now.
a petition myself.
I wanted to bring it
recall
back
petition.
home to how everything's connected, because you're talking about how Snyder thought Flint was so disconnected.
Detroit
But
too.
that's only a person that doesn't understand history. Flint is the place where we had the first sit-in strike.
Exactly.
So they're connected with the labor movement. That's the first place. That's the place where mass credit was invented
I agree.
for the car industry.
Ooh.
So that he better stand up and take notice in the history of capitalism too. They're connected, not just in the labor movement. So he's just counting on people's ignorance of history when
Exactly.
he thinks that they're not connected.
Because they don't show you that kind of stuff on television. They only show you images of destruction. It's the same thing with Detroit. Whenever I travel outside of Michigan, you go to places and people ask you, where you from? Detroit. Ooh, dangerous, violence. But when you think about that narrative, look how long they've been constructing that narrative, 20 to 30 years. Flint's just destruction. GM went bankrupt in Flint. Detroit's just destruction. It's it's the largest urban city to go bankrupt. They've constructed that narrative, and then it's allowed for the policies to come through. Why can you get the pensions from Detroiters and you couldn't get it nowhere else? Because you felt like the nation was so disconnected that no one would protest.
But they play upon our intelligence too. They come up with a lot of narratives that people just go wildly believing that black folks aren't managing their own cities and they're not trusted to manage their own cities. And that's what allowed the election of the past 5 to 7 years happen, because of those same narratives and the people that's pushing those narratives, knowing that they were false, they were fooled too.
And that's why we made it the Flint Water scandal, because we want to make sure that they didn't turn it into their narrative with making it a crisis and forget about the crime. We want to make sure that the scandal
There was the emphasis on the crime.
Exactly.
Right. Because we wanted to control the narrative. We didn't want them to control the narrative and just label it a crisis and forget about holding people accountable.
Exactly. Because he tried to change the narrative and say it was his Katrina. But Katrina, that was a natural.
And that's a
massive
disrespect. Let me tell you something. I tried to volunteer, through my first efforts of rapidly during Katrina. We had to, care about, know how to deal with people. If Snyder really cared about people, he would have went down there himself and knocked on doors.
He would have been there.
This is not his Katrina, and that's disrespectful for him to say. Now, remember in 2014 during the floods, Snyder flew over the floods of Oakland County. Got in front of Waterford and then try to downplay that part. That's not really bad. When the floods really hit the city of Detroit and the suburbia hard, and people needed help and relief, and when they were treated the same way, it was like he needed to be gone in, but that power wasn't, magnified because that was just only a 1 week story.
I felt like we knew in the first term he didn't care about people, because isn't this the same governor that taxed elderly pensions and then voted the right to work legislation in? We know he don't care about
Isn't
people.
this the same governor that had abortion restricted in Michigan and also allowed people to have guns in what stadiums now?
And he gave $1 billion to his rich friends. But I wanted to speak on what you're talking about, them putting out that false narrative about how violent Flint is or how violent Detroit is. And I'm from Chicago, and they talk about Chirac. And it seems to me that's just a narrative they try and put on people to give them a low self-esteem. And that way they won't unite and think they can get the power.
Give you a sense of hopelessness, like, hey, we already live in Chirac. We can't do nothing
Ain't no
about
one going
this
to care. Who
situation.
am I going to call out for help to? But
Right.
now people are starting to see it. People in Flint are seeing people from Detroit come with a truck and drop it off because they got mad love.
When you see people from the city of Detroit, it's already movements already in your own communities communities that are, you know what I'm saying, mobilizing, and we all need to come together.
Right.
You know, just like with, New Era, for example, they went out there to Flint, you know, with water, and there were some people supporting. Then there were a few other organizations that followed after, and then they started having water. So this was a community effort of people showing love, you know, to neighbors in need. I love that, you know, type of communication that happened between, you know, and that brought us closer together. So we all need to learn that, you know, it's not our fault, but this is our fight. This is now our struggle. And if we don't do anything today, I'm talking about to the people that are still on the sidelines, now is the perfect time to get involved. Wherever you could do, petition, phone call, knock on doors, email, you know what I'm saying, keep people engaged, however you got to do it, you know what I'm saying. Now is the time to take a position and run with it, because we need all the support and all the help we can get. And that's from building local community onto the national scene, you know, because the national cameras, once they all leave and all the hoopla is down, we all are going to be still in the same situation of the struggle.
The problem will still be there. It's not going anywhere. And if we don't get this guy out of office now, it's only going to get worse. So the time to, you know, ignorance is costly, especially in relation to politics. So we just cannot afford to, you know, sit back and relax while this guy continues his, you know, demise of public education, water affordability. You know, he's just waging war on everybody. And I think what really frustrates me is with the numerous populations he's angered. You know, the elderly people, the unions, you know, water affordability issues. Why is this guy still in office? Why is it so hard to get him out?
Because
I don't understand.
Because the system only listens to votes and dollars, and people ain't voting, so the dollars are running the day.
Well, mostly be dollars, because the votes don't mean crap here when you're under emergency management.
I think the dollars would mean, you know,
and now they've
people
rigged
ain't
the
voting
systems.
and don't have the money, you know, and the communities that's being affected to put in the places that's needed to make the change.
Let me take people back down memory lane real quick. I mean, people can remember certain things that have happened. I'm just talking about from the emergency manager law. That was Public Act 4. We collected petitions, and we voted 53% of the population that we did not want this law here. Exactly. Why did they shove down Public Act 4 and put it with appropriations of Public Act 436?
In a lame duck session.
Then you had the bankruptcy that was over Detroit. You also had Benton Harbor that was being taken over and sold for assets. You had Flint and Saginaw, Pontiac now being sold for different assets in the Pontiac Silverdome, which was once a great place, you know, to have football and sporting events, that had been sold off and now it's destroyed. Michigan has been destroyed. I'm talking about from the straight ticket voting. 2016 is coming up for all the elections, and now you can't vote for your own party or for your own president. It's also, if you're under emergency management, your votes do not count. That's why the city of Detroit elections was robbed and stolen. A lot of people still don't believe that to this very day that votes were tampered with. They were, because of the dollars that moved, suburban dollars. And it's a chokehold from the power structure. I'm talking about from the economic club, you have the auto dealers, to all these different functions that have the elites and the money. The Republican Party that is over West Michigan that controls half of the state. You know, Detroit still has the majority voice. We're 80% black, but Flint is also a mixed bag. We have voting power, so we need to put our money and we need to build that up for where we can build our power from.
I think people really need to understand, you know, why people wondering, why are we under attack? Why are the Republicans attacking, you know, Detroit and Flint and stuff like that? People need to understand that, you know, Detroit and Flint, all these urban cities typically vote Democratic. So when you vote Democratic in mass, the Republicans are looking at this like, how do we chip into this? How do we, you know, just construct a narrative or construct a scenario where we can at least get some of these votes, take the Democratic votes away, and create some sort of a maneuver where we can get in here and have an impact. So people need to understand this legislation that's coming through right now, appropriations. I actually put a Facebook post out, the weaponization of appropriations.
Yes. So
people need to understand the Michigan Constitution says a law that has an appropriation in it cannot be subjected to voter referendum, which is the voting process. So what the Republicans are doing is they're writing legislation on purpose
and putting
appropriations in it. and they're putting an appropriation in. An appropriation is money that was appropriated to pay for workers that were mobilized for a bill, to pay to study for a bill, the effect of a bill or something like that. They're putting that in there on purpose so that the bill will never be able to be presented to the people, because they are afraid of you. They are afraid of you because they know that you will not vote the way they want you to.
Right.
They know that if they put straight party ticket on the ballot,
That
you
they
are
was
going to support straight party ticket voting. You are not going to say get rid of it. They want to get rid of it because they know when you go into the booth, you're checking Democrat. They don't want you to be, Democrat. They want you to stay home. They want you to stay home.
They want you to be confused on who it is that you're voting for, because you may not know who is Democrat and Republican at that point.
Warning.
You are now tuned in to 7 Mile Radio.